Let me be clear. If you're in a state where hurricanes often strike, like Florida or the Gulf Coast or into Texas, a vital part of preparing for hurricane season is to get vaccinated now. Let me
Wow. 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 Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Viewers Discretion. I am your host, Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic. Hope your weekend's been treating you well. The last weekend under the thumb of the Biden regime, as that is rapidly coming to a close. Lots of thoughts and discussions as to when and where the inauguration is going to take place. I got my ticket to the inauguration as originally scheduled. It does not seem that is where the inauguration is ultimately going to end up taking place. Nobody seems to know right now exactly where or even shockingly when it may happen. Alex Jones reporting earlier this evening that it may happen at midnight tomorrow, like somewhere. Nobody knows. But I am headed to D.C. Excuse me. I have my ticket in case, for one reason or another, it actually ends up happening as originally scheduled. And I am heading down there to mix and mingle with various folk who are all going to be celebrating the return of number 47, Donald John Trump. That's right. We're all going to be in D.C. partying like it's 2017. Try to forget the last 4 years. Try to forget everything terrible that happened during the last 4 years. When I was prepping for this show, I really forgot just how many terrible things have happened over the last 4 years. I mean, it was just, it's a hit parade of just terribleness. Really incredible, crazy level terribleness that most of the stuff when he was doing it, we had and only an inkling as to how bad it was a poor decision it was, and then it shooting it just proved to be worse and worse and worse as things went on. It literally started January 20th, 2021. January 20th, 2021 is when the Biden regime started going off the rails. That is when he started ripping up some of Trump's EOs. He ripped apart his healthcare executive order and spent the next several years to this day trying to figure out how to keep drug prices under control. Trump had passed the America First Act, which basically mandated that every pharmaceutical company match for Americans the lowest rate for a particular drug that they charge anywhere else in the world. Some of these pharmaceutical companies will charge a low rate for drug X in Myanmar or France or Ghana and charge 12,000% higher here in America. And Trump basically, with one simple EO, said, no. Whatever the lowest price you're able to kick it, it's worth it to you to charge to whatever place. That's what you have to charge Americans, which is why it's an America First policy. It's a great policy that I hope he reinstitutes on January 20th, 2025. Because it had Trump's name on it, Biden ripped it up and then spent the next 4 years saying, what can we do about drug prices? I don't know what to do. When Trump signed that EO, it turned insulin and diabetic medications, which they say run for like $600 per month, to $60 overnight. And then, as soon as it got ripped up, prices got jacked back up. And then when they get it back down, I think they got it back down now to like $200. So like, oh, this is a massive win. 3 years later, that's the Biden regime right there. Utter failure, all about virtue signaling to the people that they favor and ostracizing and demonizing anyone who is not on the left side of the aisle, making us basically try to feel as if we are the terrorists in this country, and inviting and welcoming every anti-American perspective, individual, and concept to fester deeper and deeper into this country. By anti-American, I don't mean that someone who lives in another country is anti-American. Oh, hell no. I don't mean that at all. There are a lot of people who live 6,000 miles away from me, 10,000 miles away from me, who are far more American than people who live down the block from me. They're far more American as far as their ideologies. I'm simply saying that those folks, they're not welcome here any more than I am. It's all a matter of if you have the right ideology, you're welcome under the Biden regime. And if not, we're going to do everything we can to make your life as miserable as possible. And even those of you who are supporting our stupid, ridiculous, insane regime, we're going to do everything we can to make life as difficult as possible. Why? Because that's what we just want to do. Because this way we look like we're the good guys. Whatever it is that makes us look like the good guys, irrespective of whether or not it's a stupid policy, hurting the very people it's purporting to benefit, whatever it is, the only essential to anything we do is that it makes us look like the good guys. And we will judge anyone who stands in the way of that as if they're a terrible threat to democracy. You're a threat to democracy. And it really started out of the gate. As soon as he came in there, we saw him start to just tear on in there and start dropping indictment after indictment on anyone who was associated with January 6th. Just started dropping one indictment after another. And the disasters that we saw.
On Tuesday, April 4th.
This isn't what I wanted. Started in two ways in 2021. It started in two ways. First, it started with let's indict everyone under January 6th. And they started labeling January 6th. I mean, they already had started labeling it really from January 7th, 2021 as the worst day in human history, the worst day in America. And it's like 9/11 multiplied by Pearl Harbor. That was the talking point we heard. The worst insurrection ever. Terrible, 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 terrible. And they had fed into all of that when they were going through the impeachment process between January 6th and January 20th. And when they chased after they chased Trump out of the White House, day one, start ripping up all his EOs. You might have forgotten this, and one of the key EOs he ripped up was construction on the Keystone Pipeline, saying, hey, we're not into the whole fossil fuel. Fossil fuel is just destroying the entire planet. So let's just destroy the Keystone Pipeline and make sure that we're getting tons of fossil fuel imported from around the world, from China, from anywhere. We'll take it from anywhere. We just can't have it here. That's exactly what the type of thing I'm talking about when I say it's something that makes us sound so virtuous. Oh, we're not producing fossil fuel. We're slowing down fossil fuel. We're slowing down the production of fossil fuel while importing fossil fuel from other countries and pretending that that's somehow protecting the planet. As if, I guess, you know, the only place in the planet that could affect climate change is the ozone layer directly over the continental United States. I don't know what the heck the point was, but the point was loud and clear that we're the good guys here. We're the ones who are taking care and making sure that America is going to be safe. And shortly after 2021 started, inflation started going through the roof. You might have forgotten that at the beginning of 2021, vaccines were starting to be rolled out at that time. We were starting to open up in various locations, and vaccines started rolling out. And at first, it was a matter of, okay, some folks are going to get vaccinated, some folks won't. And that was the way it was going to be, you know, and we had a certain we had to get to what was the thing they used the term. You guys know the term with the herd, that once we have herd immunity, that once you get to having 2/3 of people are vaccinated or whatever, in that case, everything's fine then at that point. Somehow that concept of herd immunity just whoop right out the window. No one remembered the herd immunity. And basically anyone who's out there who's unvaccinated suddenly became deemed some sort of, I don't know, patient X, patient zero for the next outbreak of some new lethal strain, or that's what we were being told in 2021. I'm not giving medical advice because I ain't a doctor. One of the things we learned in 2021 is anyone who doesn't say crap like that over and over again is going to have your YouTube channel yeeted. So we all learned to basically do the marching in line with what Biden, the powers that be over social media wanted, which was essentially, I have to keep telling you, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice. There's no medical advice being given here. And that's what YouTube wants me to say. YouTube wants me to tell you, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving medical advice. You need to talk to your doctor about anything that you need to stay safe from COVID or any other sort of medical issues. And that became a mantra. I had to sort of learn to like just plant this, the seed in the back of my head, which to this day, I still have to repeat. Much like I'm a third grader in 1950 repeating the Pledge of Allegiance, I have to repeat that stupid mantra to you fine people over and over again, lest they dangle over my head like the sword of Damocles, the yeet button. They're like, oh, you're going to take a week-long vacation, Joey boy, because you said something that we're deeming medical misinformation. Unbelievable. Changing their policies left and right. This is all reflexive to the power of the Biden regime. It's not something that Joe Biden himself was doing or anyone. Let's face it, Joe Biden didn't do very much at all the last 4 years. It's the faceless, nameless circle of people around him who were doing everything for the last 4 years. Because this dude doesn't. I can't believe that he knows what he does. I don't think he has any clue what he ate for breakfast 20 minutes ago. He's going to sit there making policy for the United States. Anyone really believes that? And some idiots, a lot of idiots on the left seem to think so. Oh, thank you, Joe Biden. You're such a great president. Oh, gosh. But 2021, as shortly after he came into office, it quickly became known as the year of inflation.
Let's paint a picture of an economy. On the one hand, more jobs, lower unemployment, higher wages, and stock markets. But on the other hand, backups at ports and rail yards, companies struggling to meet demand, prices rising too.
Remember the backups at the rail yards and like, oh my gosh, you're not going to get your toilet paper. You're not going to get this. You can't get that. You can't get your clothing. Nothing on Temu is coming or Wish or whatever. You can't get anything. And gas prices immediately started surging. I remember that when I went to California, it was like, I don't know, $7-8 a gallon. It was insanity.
Much too fast. It's the story of the U.S. in 2021 and the historic return of inflation.
Costs rising across the country. Runaway costs.
Food, gas, electricity, housing.
Consumer prices remain too high.
It came gradually and then suddenly. Crude oil prices crept higher, then jumped in February. It was gasoline prices heading into March, then lumber and used cars in April. U.S. consumer prices, a key measure of inflation, have been climbing almost every month since, rising to 6.8% in November, the highest since 1982.
Consumers.
Notice that line there. It went from April of 2021 to September.
6.8% in November, the highest since 1982.
But it started under Biden's regime. People, I just want you to bear that in mind before we get to the next clip.
Consumers, when they're going to stores, are feeling it. And here on the back end, when we're looking at a lot of this data, you can see it really rippling through the economy. So everything from gas prices, food prices, raw goods, lumber or metals, you're seeing those prices going up, often to multi-decade highs.
There's plenty of argument about how it happened and who's at fault, but we know it wasn't any one thing. A fast and huge rebound in spending.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, fine. End of you. The point I wanted to make is he might have forgotten just how terrible inflation was as soon as Joe Biden came in. What is Joe Biden's answer to all this? When he was attacked for having this crazy high inflation, what was his response to all of that? Oh, he had the perfect answer for that.
You know, last Tuesday, the annual inflation rate came in at 8.3%. The stock market nosedived. People are shocked by their grocery bills. What can you do better and faster?
Well, first of all, let's put this in perspective. Inflation rate month to month was just an inch, hardly at all.
You're not arguing that 8.3 is good news.
No, I'm not saying it's good news, but it was 8.2 or 8.2 before. I mean, it's not, you're
8.2 the month before, not under Trump. It was just 8.2 and then it went to 8.3. This is like, it's no big deal.
I can make it sound like all of a sudden, my God, it went to 8.2%. It's
It's the
been,
highest inflation rate, Mr. President, in 40 years.
I got that. But guess what we are? We're in a position where for the last several months, it hasn't spiked. It is just barely, it's been basically even.
President,
Really? It got to 8.3 over the course of a year, going from like next to nothing. So that's kind of spiking, but that was the gaslighting that they figured we were all just going to swallow, because at that point, America seemed as if we swallow gaslighting hook, line, and sinker as long as legacy media is telling it to us. Let me pause. See what Mike Johnson said regarding his Jan 24th meeting. I did. I'm going to share it later. Thank you, Janelle. I still remember the endless fear tactics about super spreaders, but the Biden administration was actually the number one super spreader. Well, yes. Yeah. Do you remember that event which they had there? Meanwhile, while inflation was going through the roof, and they're sitting there telling us it's no big deal. It's no big deal. In fact, Janet Yellen, Treasury, the Secretary of the Treasury, is saying inflation is a good thing. This is all a good thing.
Over the last 2 or so weeks, former Federal Reserve Chairwoman and current U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has made a lot of public comments about inflation being a good thing. She has talked about how inflation means there's a healthy economy, how inflation means there's more consumer demand-driven inflation, and also how inflation means that
news.
The economy is doing so well that interest rates are going to go up. But a lot of this is complete.
That's the Secretary of the Treasury trying to gaslight us that inflation is something we should be thanking God for, thanking God and Biden for.
In total BS. This is all part of the stagflate tax lie narrative. She is admitting that inflation is going to keep surging, although I think the U.S. government will start to change the consumer price index. We had hedge fund manager Kyle Bass do an interview on CNBC in the last 24 hours talking about how if the consumer price index was not using phony chained CPI data, if it was unchained, Kyle Bass says the real inflation rate would be 12% right now, which
So the point being that it's not simply that inflation was surging out of control. It's that the very people in this administration who were in a position to actually do something most directly about it were trying to gaslight us that this was a blessing and a good thing. And we should all be grateful for it, displaying that they had zero inclination of trying to slow it down or do anything about it. No. Inflation is something that we need lots more of. It's been way too long since we had such great inflation. Meanwhile, you still had the vax had rolled out, and Biden was getting very concerned that not enough people were getting vaccinated. This is also early in 2021.
This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. This is totally unacceptable.
Taking direct aim at vaccine resistance in America, U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday announced sweeping new initiatives, including requiring all federal employees to get vaccinated against COVID-19 and ordering the U.S. Department of Labor to require that businesses with more than 100 employees have
Again, this was all in 2021.
Their workers vaccinated or tested weekly. The new measures cover about 2/3 of all U.S. employees and are part of Biden's most aggressive steps yet to prod unvaccinated Americans to get the shots.
The bottom line, we're going to protect vaccinated workers from unvaccinated coworkers. My message to unvaccinated Americans.
And the message they kept giving us was that the reason to get vaxxed is you are helping stop the spread. To the unvaxxed. This was after they had told us that the vaccine made you unspreadable, which that later ended up proving to be completely ridiculous. Not that I'm giving any medical advice, because I don't offer any medical advice on this channel. In fact, anything you hear for the balance of the show, please bear in mind it's not medical advice, because I am not a doctor and I never give medical advice, certainly not on social media.
Is this. What more is there to wait for?
Yeah, what more is there to wait for?
What more do you need to see? You've been patient. But our patience is wearing thin.
Everyone makes it like he's this kindly old uncle the entire time. That's what everyone loves portraying him as. He's just this kindly old man. Why would you not want to have this man around? He's just this kind old man who cares about the good and welfare of Americans.
And your refusal has cost all of us. So please do the right thing.
The recent surge in cases from the fast-spreading Delta variant has posed increased risk not only to the country, but to a president who ran on promises to get control over the virus and who earlier this year said the country was, quote, closer than ever to declaring our independence from the pandemic. Despite a full-throttle campaign by the Biden administration urging all eligible Americans to get the free vaccines, just over 53% of Americans are fully vaccinated, according to the CDC.
But just don't take it from me. Listen to the voices of unvaccinated Americans who are lying in hospital beds, taking their final breath saying, if only I'd gotten vaccinated. If only. It's a tragedy. Please don't let it become yours.
Under Biden's plan, the administration will also require vaccinations for more than 17 million healthcare workers at hospitals and other institutions.
And those who didn't get vaccinated, many of whom got fired. Many firefighters got fired.
And seeks to ramp up testing capacity for the virus. Biden will use his authority under the Defense Production Act to spur industry to accelerate the production of tests and order big retailers, including Walmart, Amazon, and Kroger, to sell the tests at cost to make them more affordable. But the plan is likely to face legal challenges and was immediately disparaged by Biden's Republican opposition. It could be months before the mandate's impact is felt.
Yeah, well, it was a little while, but then the mandate started being felt left and right, as reported over here. That's not it. And then we started hearing reports like this.
Late today, as New York City's COVID vaccine mandate for municipal workers kicked in, unions for the nation's largest fire department warned of the potential for closed firehouses and longer emergency response times.
New York City is going to come to a crisis on Monday morning.
Earlier today, the city said just 67% of its firefighters had received at least one dose. Those who don't get the shot face unpaid leave starting Monday. Tonight, six
It wasn't
firefighters.
just them. It ended up being the NYPD. It ended up being court workers. It ended up being anyone who worked in any sort of official capacity at all. Postal worker, you work for the federal government, you work for a state government, you work for a city government, you work for a company that has over 100 employees. One place after another was requiring that you get vaxxed. They started putting restrictions on allowing people into restaurants unless you were vaxxed. They started putting one restriction after another.
Been suspended for driving a ladder truck while on duty to a state senator's office and allegedly threatening the senator's staff over the COVID vaccine mandate.
On social media, people were screaming. On TikTok, people were screaming at you that you were a monster killing people if you didn't get vaxxed, that you were a terrible, terrible, evil person. A year and a half later, they were all begging for forgiveness and saying, "Oh, we were so mistaken. Look, we were caught up in the heat of the moment. Please don't blame us for thinking that, it was so essential." But this is the madness that you and I all lived through.
From coast to coast, more showdowns over shots. Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva is calling his area's COVID vaccine mandate an imminent threat to public safety, saying it's causing a mass exodus within his department.
And it was 100% your body, my choice. Your body, my choice.
Also in California, popular burger chain In-N-Out just shut down more restaurants rather than comply with mandates.
I can see where they're coming from, that it's not their job.
YouTube wants me to tell you that there is nothing at all definitive to show that there was any sort of health concern arising from anyone who took the vaccine. And my point is not to make any statement about the efficacy of the vaccine or any side effects or anything at that point, because as I said numerous times in the past and during tonight's show, I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you what to do with respect to the vaccine. I'm simply reminding you about the nightmare that countless Americans live through.
To, as they put it, be vaccine police.
Today, 10 states filed a new lawsuit against the Biden administration's vaccine requirement for federal contractors. Iowa's governor signed a new law allowing workers fired for noncompliance with COVID vaccine mandates to receive unemployment benefits. And next Tuesday, a new deadline for the Air Force. Up to 12,000 personnel have rejected orders to get fully vaccinated despite a Pentagon mandate. Still, the vast majority of active duty airmen, more than 96%, are at least partially vaccinated. And tonight, word that the U.S. Supreme Court won't block a COVID vaccine mandate for healthcare workers in Maine. Back in New York City, officials say the last-minute push is working. The NYPD now reporting more than 80% compliance, up from 70% last week.
So I think we're heading in the right direction.
And with the rise in vaccinations and the fading Delta variant, some encouraging news. New York City just reported a COVID test positivity rate of less than 1%.
Thanks for watching our YouTube.
There you go. There you go. And in case you thought he was just being an utter failure domestically, no. Meanwhile, that summer is when we had that tragic incident that resulted from the complete blundering of our commander-in-chief and his staff, withdrawal from Afghanistan, resulting in the death of 13 servicemen and women, dozens more injured very seriously. And I'm sure most of you recall that horrific embarrassment. And this was in the summer of 2021. I'm going to share with you an account you probably have not seen from a survivor of that attack. It's just a 5-minute account that I wanted to share with you as a way of just reminding you all about what a complete and utter travesty President Biden has been.
Back to CBS Mornings, where for the first time we're getting a U.S. service member's eyewitness account of the deadly terrorist attack at Kabul's airport that killed 13 American troops during the chaotic evacuation there. It was the deadliest day in more than a decade for the American military in Afghanistan. Now, only on CBS Mornings, you're about to hear from one of the Marines who was wounded by those suicide blasts. He spoke with our David Martin, who's at the Pentagon for us this morning. David, good morning. What are we learning?
Well, good morning. The Marines had warning that an attack was coming, even had a physical description of the suspected bomber. But in that crush of humanity outside the airport, they were unable to spot it.
Major Ben Sutphin was there when the bomb went off, right there.
How far away were you?
I was about 15 feet.
Yet he is somehow alive and able to give the first eyewitness account of the blast.
We brought a truck with a loudspeaker down to try to disperse the crowd. I was standing right by that truck when the bomb went off.
The truck shielded you?
I'd say so.
After the suicide bomber detonated his vest, gunmen opened fire from a nearby roof. Sutphin described the actions of a Marine corporal.
He's blown off his feet and still has his wits about him, shot through the shoulder, immediately recovers his weapon and puts the opposing gunman down.
If they had just opened fire without you firing back, what would have happened?
Without a doubt, many more Marine and civilian lives would have been lost.
15 Marines were wounded, among them Corporal Kelsey Lanehart. Her parents allowed us to show these pictures of her recovering at Walter Reed.
Another corporal with substantial blast injuries to his lungs and internal organs still has enough grit and courage at risk of his own life to drag another injured Marine out of harm's way.
This is where it happened, about 300 yards from Abbey Gate, one of the main entrances to the airport. The Marines had set up a corridor between Abbey Gate and the Barron Hotel, where British troops were located. On the day of the attack, Abbey Gate was the only way into the airport.
The other two gates had been closed for a while. So what was happening is everyone, it looked like the city converging on Abbey Gate.
Despite intelligence warnings of an imminent attack by a terrorist group known as ISIS-K, Abbey Gate stayed open.
Despite warnings of an imminent attack, Biden administration.
So British troops at the hotel could return to the airport.
The day of the attack, we had gotten probably the most direct indications of a threat at the Abbey Gate and an individual to look out for. So we made sure that information was passed to our Marine snipers and to the Marines on location.
How difficult would it be to pick out one person who you have a description of?
I would say next to impossible. In crowds of thousands, tightly packed, shoulder to shoulder, chest to chest. I mean, this was a very dense crowd.
Sutphen, who was the operations officer of his battalion, said the Marines took every possible precaution.
Armed aerial surveillance overhead at the time. We had electronic countermeasures for improvised explosive device all along that corridor that would try to eliminate any, electronically triggered device.
But the suicide bomber was not detected, and the carnage was horrific. An estimated 170 Afghan civilians killed. The airport went into mourning as 13 dead Americans were sent home with honors.
I'm sure you've asked yourself this. In retrospect, what could you have done differently?
The mission was evacuating people. We had to keep that road open. There was not a lot we could change about that situation. It was the mission, and we executed.
Yeah, from his location, there was little he could change. There was a lot that Biden could have changed, but there was little he could have changed.
It was to have been there last.
He's doing his job. It's sad that he was put in a position that his job was near suicidal.
Mission. Abbey Gate was scheduled to close, and those Marines were supposed to return to the airport to board planes for the flight out. Gail?
Boy, David, that's tough to hear. It was a terrible, terrible day. And then to hear from the major that it could have been so much worse. Our thanks to him. Thanks to the...
Not to mention the loss of life, we also armed the Taliban with tens of billions of the latest high-tech military equipment. Great job, Joe Biden. Great job indeed. That was in the summer of 2021. In the winter of 2021, from what I recall, I think I have this right, that's when Russia started lining up along the border of Ukraine. Was that in 2021? I believe that was late in 2021. Started amassing along the border of Ukraine. Now, this presented the Biden administration with a unique opportunity. They could have taken a lot of steps before Putin went in. There was a lot of things they could have negotiated. If the government was being run by capitalists, it would have been very simple, considering the fact that this war, while having the fig leaf veneer of being about repatriating Russians, was very clearly about the K2 pipeline, that the steps they could have taken is to sort of work out that Russia would be able to have its K2 pipeline run through Ukraine and have Ukraine take some proceeds thereof, as well as America even perhaps taking some proceeds. And instead of turning them into an enemy, we could have turned them into a business partner. That's not to say that I think Putin is a good guy. I think he's likely a terrible guy. I think he's likely a terrible human being. Unfortunately, a lot of world leaders across the globe and throughout history have been terrible people. That doesn't mean that you don't take steps to keep them in check and perhaps even become a business partner if it's geopolitically the best course of action, if it's geopolitically going to save lives. But no. Instead of getting rich and fat off of this potential conflict, Joe Biden decided he was going to break Americans, destroy our economy, and start investing hundreds of billions into Ukraine, fighting against Russia. And suddenly he was this big war hawk who says, Zelensky's going to stand up and save the world and fight against Putin. And what the objective of the war is, no one to this day knows. Is it to get Putin out of Ukraine? Is it to get back all the territory that Putin got? Is it to kill Putin? Is it to take over Moscow? What is considered a win here? Nobody knows, because this was never at all about winning anything. This was simply what we later learned turned into a phenomenal money laundering scheme for both sides of the aisle. Both sides of the aisle in D.C. This is not something that was exclusively Democrat. Far too many Republicans, neocons, signed on with the idea of, hey, let's go to war. It's taking pictures on the U.S. steps of the U.S. Capitol. I'll never forget this picture, which in the center there, like smack in the middle of hundreds of other congressmen, you see Warhawk Dan Crenshaw with his eye patch and all standing behind a a bastardized American flag, a bastardized flag, which should outrage any true American patriot, where the stars of the flag are replaced with those stupid whatever symbol they have that looks like, some morphed swastika that Ukraine uses. And that's what the American flag is, as if it's not like, no, Ukraine is simply our 51st state. They are like our first state. Their lives and their safety certainly took a great deal of priority over the lives of Americans. Meanwhile, while we're busy protecting Ukraine's border, we started seeing an influx of illegal immigrants, which had eclipsed anything America had seen before. When states started trying to stop them from coming in, Biden would take them to court saying, how dare you stand in our way? Now, in 2022, this is when we start seeing about the whole Twitter files drop, right? This is after Elon had bought Twitter. He's taking over Twitter. I'm afraid of my timeline being slightly out of whack here. Time starts to run together when you get older. And we started hearing all about the terrible censorship that was going on, and we started learning more and more about how Biden had been in cahoots with Facebook and with X, and literally had teams of federal agents whose duty was to monitor social media from domestic comments that were deemed harmful to whatever American cause Biden was purportedly attempting to enact. And that these are people who have to be silenced and oppressed, and their tweets have to be taken down, their Facebook posts have to be yanked, their accounts have to be stripped away. Mean memes are now being labeled some sort of atrocity. People were actually charged with crimes based on what they had, like what was clearly joke memes. What was the name of the guy? You guys remember the name of that individual who made a joke meme about like that election day in 2020 was on Wednesday, and that they'll accept your ballot then? And I think he's still serving time. Did he get out recently? Ridiculousness. And engaging in what Judge Terry Doughty, upon reviewing it, would later refer to as the worst First Amendment abuse in American history by any government ever. That's what the Biden administration was. So we got surging inflation. We have incompetence in Afghanistan, showing just how weak and stupid the people running our military during the Biden administration were, and illegal aliens streaming across our border, and all sorts of regulations that if you don't comply with whatever it is they want to stick inside of you, you're now going to end up potentially losing your job. This is what life was like under the Biden regime, not to mention the censorship of anyone who was calling out all of these atrocities that were being conducted by the worst president in the history of these United States. That's what we were dealing with just during the first 2 years of the Biden administration. Meanwhile, his lackeys were coming out there trying to explain to us how, okay, we're starting to recognize that inflation's getting out of control, and it's hard for us to really deny the whole inflation thing. So let's come out here and start explaining to Americans, because we're sitting here on the left shilling for whatever idiocy the Biden administration is throwing at us. Let's come out here and start shilling for how inflation is really, it's a good and healthy thing.
Today, inflation has been high in the United States and globally. It appears as though it's starting to come down. What I'm going to break down today for you is why it is generally accepted that a little bit of inflation is a good thing, and why lots of inflation or deflation, prices coming down, which might sound good, actually are not good things.
So you're going to call this little inflation. That's the problem, because you're bought and sold shill. So it wasn't simply, airhead podcasters who were coming out there who would start losing viewers by the thousands after the 2024 election. No. The erudite, brilliant scholars of the left were coming to us, telling us how we're being lied to about inflation. This is not Biden's fault at all. No. Tell us all about it, Robert Reich.
Inflation. Everybody's talking about it, but ignoring one of its biggest causes, corporate concentration.
That's what it is. It's all about those evil corporations. Of course, that's what it is. No, nothing to do with Biden's policies or his restriction of fuel. No, 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 no. It's all about corporate greed.
Now, prices are undeniably rising. In response, the Fed is about to slow the economy, even though we're still at least 4 million jobs short of where we were before the pandemic. And millions of American workers won't get the raises they deserve. Republicans haven't wasted any time hammering Biden and Democratic lawmakers about inflation.
Because they're just liars. They're just liars. Because this is all really not at all the Democrats' fault. No, sir, Bob.
Rocketing inflation. But don't fall for their fear-mongering.
No. You should rest assured that you should not be afraid. Everything is totally fine, and that the only reason there's any inflation is because corporations are totally evil.
Everybody's ignoring the deeper structural reason for price increases, the concentration of the American economy into the hands of a very few corporate giants with the power to raise prices. If the market...
What about the devaluation of the dollar? Because you're just setting billions of it on fire and sending it to Ukraine. What about that? Is that a factor here? No, it's all about corporate greed.
If it were actually competitive, corporations would keep their prices as low as possible as they competed for customers. Even if some of their costs increased, they would do everything they...
By the way, if you want to know how stupid this video is, this is the video Kamala watched before she started saying, my thrust of my campaign is going to be about price gouging from these big corporations. She watched this video, came to a conclusion that like, oh, I guess it's just about price gouging, and then was roundly criticized by her own side of the aisle as promoting perhaps the stupidest perspective as to how to fix the economy. But Robert Reich wants to just tell you all about it.
Could to avoid passing those costs on to consumers in the form of higher prices, for fear of losing business to competitors. But that's the opposite of what we're seeing. Corporations are raising prices even as they rake in record profits.
Why now? Why now, Robert? Why weren't they doing it 5 years earlier, 10 years earlier? Why? I mean, you got nice graphics.
Corporate profit margins hit record highs last year. You see, these corporations have so much market power, they can raise prices with impunity.
I will tell you that one of the most astonishing things, by the way,
so the underlying
is part of the whole Mandela effect. And you should Google Mandela effect if you don't know what that is. Oh, heck, I'll save you the 12 seconds on Google. Mandela effect is what's referred to as when large segments of the population remember something inaccurately. And it's called the Mandela effect because a whole bunch of people thought Mandela died while he was still alive. They thought they were positive they remembered hearing reports of his death. Another element to the Mandela effect is that most people, or a significant percentage of people, remember Mr. Moneypenny here, whatever his name is, having a monocle, which he never had. He never, ever had. So I think that's a crossover from Mr. Peanut, perhaps, but I don't know why that is that so many people remember him having a monocle, but apparently he's never had one, if that's what you thought. Did you think he had a monocle? Did you? You can say it. It's okay. It's okay. No one's judging you. You're sitting alone. Just say it to yourself under your breath. Yes, Joe, I thought he had a monocle. Yes, Joe. Yes, Joe, I thought he had a monocle. Don't worry. There's nothing to be embarrassed. No, I'm not even going to know that you said it. I'm not even going to. You could just for yourself. For yourself.
The problem isn't inflation per se, it's lack of competition. Corporations are using the excuse of inflation to raise prices and make fatter profits. Take the energy sector. Only a few entities have access to the land and pipelines that control the oil and gas powering most of the world. They took a hit during the pandemic, as most people...
Listen to this idiocy from this guy. In case he's planning on hitting me for this, I'm just sharing this with you to show you what a moron Robert Reich is. Again, this is the stupidity that he tried sharing, because there's so many flaws in what he's saying. He takes elements of truth, throws it in here as to like what corporations can do, and the dangerous effects of an oligarchy. And it is true also that there is an oligarchy. There's just no evidence that this oligarchy is what led specifically to the inflation crisis under the Biden administration.
Stay home, but they are more than making up for it now, limiting supply and ratcheting up prices.
Chevron, Exxon have doubled their profits. This isn't about inflation. This is about price gouging.
Look at these airheads. Look at these airheads. See? They're all talking about price gouging. That's why Kamala came out and she saw this old video and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna crack down on price gouging and we're gonna stop inflation."
Or look at consumer goods. In April 2021, Procter & Gamble raised prices on staples like diapers and toilet paper, citing increased costs in raw materials and transportation. But P&G has been making huge profits after some of its price increases.
How dare they make profits?
Went into effect, it reported an almost 25% profit margin. Looking to buy your diapers elsewhere?
How different was that profit margin from before they raised their prices? Kind of the same profit margin.
Well, good luck. The market is dominated by P&G and Kimberly-Clark, which not entirely coincidentally raised its prices at the
All right, he's probably going to strike me because he's a cuck loser. So I'm probably going to, if you're watching after the fact, I probably had to cut that out so that this video would be viewable by you. I apologize for that. But this is the idiocy that was being purported, that this had nothing to do with Biden policy. No. It had nothing to do with the fact that he was shutting down, he was making it more difficult to access fuel. No. And they started gaslighting us, telling us how there's more fuel operations now. And yet somehow fuel prices kept going up. No one could explain why. Finally, Biden came around and he started recognizing that, hey, people are not so happy about inflation, no matter how good we tell them it is for them. So let's tell them now how things are much better. This was part 2 of the gaslighting on inflation from the Biden administration.
Today, we've got some good news.
Good news. Tell us the good news, Joey boy.
Good news about the economy. For the 6th month in a row, inflation has come down.
6 months in a row, inflation has come down. This became the mantra for like a year. It still might be to this day, the mantra that the left has been throwing at us. Now, inflation is really not so bad anymore.
Measured over the last 12 months, it has fallen 6.5 to 6.5%. That's down.
Fallen to 6.5%.
From 7.1% the month before. It's down from 9.1% this summer. Inflation is now at its lowest level since October of 2021. When we look at just the last 3 months, we see that inflation.
I don't think that's true.
Fell to 1.8% on an annualized basis. It's down from more than 11% in the first 3 months of last year. So the data is clear. Even though inflation is high in major economies around the world, it's coming down in America month after month, giving families some real breathing room. And the big reason is falling gas prices. My administration took action to get oil onto the market and bring down prices. Now gas is down more than $1.70 from its peak. That adds up to a typical family with.
And this is what they kept basically saying. It's not as terrible as it was at its worst. Now, there's a few things that are misleading about what he's saying here, and I'll clarify that for you in a moment.
2 vehicles to a savings of $180 a month. Every single
savings of $180 a month. It's a savings only from like 3 months earlier when it was insane. So now it's only just insane.
A month that stays in their pockets instead of being spent at the pump.
Yeah, the problem is that when you're talking about declining inflation, that doesn't mean deflation. Deflation is when prices are going down. It doesn't mean prices are going down. Declining inflation, and this is the bait and switch that the left loved to play over the last 2 years in particular, was declining inflation just means it's not going up as fast as it was. It's still going up. It's still getting higher. It's just not accelerating at the insane roller coaster rate it was before. It's going up at a slightly less precipitous rate. So that's the win. The win is that that inflation is not skyrocketing on a month-by-month basis. It's higher today. So last month, 6 months ago, when you were upset about the prices being too high, it's much higher than that now. It's much higher. But it didn't climb as fast as it would have if we had continued on the same ridiculous rate that we were on earlier. So we were on this crazy high rate. Now the incline went like this. So that's what we should be celebrating under the Biden administration. That's the big win. Not prices coming down. No, they're still going. They're not even leveled. They're not leveled. No, it's not stagnant. It's still going up, just not quite as steeply as it was beforehand. That's a win. That's what the Biden administration, this disastrous administration, to them, that is what's, oh my gosh, wow, what a great day. Oh, what a great day. 6 months of only inflation climbing at 5%, 6.5%. This is a great day. It's supposed to be going up at 2% or under 2% per annum. Going up at 6%. Oh my gosh, what a great day. Oh, thank God. This is what a win is for this administration. A joke. Now, I don't know if Americans ever actually understood it. I don't know if Americans actually understood what they were trying to say. I think their messaging for most people who are not viewers of this show probably was effective for a short while, but then what would happen is they would have to pay their bills a month later, and they're like, it's not any cheaper, Joe. In fact, it's still going up. So after a while, people were like, no, your economy sucks. Your economy's terrible. Bidenomics means you're broke. That's what Bidenomics work. That's how Bidenomics works. You're broke, and Zelensky is getting big checks. That's essentially what Bidenomics meant. In case you were confused, you've never heard anyone really define what Bidenomics is. But Bidenomics basically is we're going to make it impossible for people to get fuel, drive up prices, and then devalue the dollar by sending billions of it over in pallets and crates to some country that 4 years ago you never could have found on a map. Because otherwise, and also tell you about how World War III is coming unless we do this somehow, and they're going into Poland next. That's what 2022 was all about, and then people started complaining that they were like having chest issues. I don't know what that was about, but that was the 2022 was the year of chest issues. Totally unrelated to anything we've been talking about so far, just to be clear. Fortunately, we hear less about that today. I don't know if that's just more suffocation from legacy media or if that's actually hopefully a sign of a decline. All sorts of issues along that sort of thing. Younger people you wouldn't think would be having those sorts of issues at a much higher incidence that they had in the past. Healthy people, athletes, just all of a sudden, and terrifying ways, really almost like, I guess, I don't know what it was. I can't even imagine what it was. I won't even begin to speculate about any of that, because I would never speculate about stuff like that, because I'm not a doctor and I don't know anything about medicine. So, but I certainly wish everyone well. I certainly wish everyone well. That was 2022 coming into 2023. Whew. Doing our nice little retrospective here. In case you joined late, I'm catching you up to date as to exactly how disastrous the Biden administration has been since literally day one. Since day one, the Biden administration, after being sworn in, and you had that cute little black girl singing some song or whatever that I didn't hear it, but everyone, was it a poem? She did something that was adorable, that everyone says. And that was all nice. I have no problem with that, I guess. I mean, I don't know what the message in it. I'm afraid that if I listen to it, it's gonna make my stomach retch, which is why I never have. But that all was well. But before they let Joe Biden lay his head on a pillow, they made sure that he was just ripping up one Trump EO after another and basically causing economic collapse, while at the same time forcing all these different laws down our throats, sending our money over abroad, and embarrassing our military while causing tragic and completely thoroughly unnecessary loss of the lives and health of far too many servicemen and women in Afghanistan. This is what 2022 was the year of gaslighting, telling us how everything was really, really great. 2023, as we turn 2023, that's when we started really understanding a lot more about the Twitter files. I think that started in 2022, but we started really understanding a lot more about everything that was happening in social media, and just how heavy their boot was on our neck. And it's also, was it 2022 or 2023? It's also when we had this declaration from President Biden. I don't know how much we're going to watch, but this is a speech where this was what later became known as the Red Speech. It's called the Red Speech. I'm calling it the Red Speech, so we'll call it that. This is Joe Biden speaking in front of Independence Hall. Look at the intimidating visual effect of the red light in the background, and it looks with the flag angled downwards like you're in some communist country here. It's being used not to show what we stand for, but draped. It's being used as curtains. When flags are, what is the purpose of a flag? And I actually got into this discussion and started analyzing this more around this time, which is that you can wave a flag, and that's a symbol of what you idolize and what you agree with, or values that you agree with. I mean, what is a flag ultimately? It's really just stitched material of varying colors. But the point to a flag is to show to the world what you identify with. When it's being used in that particular way, that type of display, which frankly, I think it's wrong. I think it's inverted. I think that the stars are supposed to be on the other side, but if it is upside down, that's simply symbolic of the fact that when a flag is upside down, it's symbolizing distress. And we were certainly under distress at this point in time, on the day and night when he was making this particular speech. The entire effect here of using the flag here is basically saying, this is who I am. This is using it as blocking scenery. Like, this is, you're now trapped in this zone of this thing. That's why we see in every June during Pride Month in various places, they will just drape everywhere where you feel like you're walking down the street. Like, this is the ideology, this is the culture you're in. Don't you dare try to stand up against it. And when you have this visual effect of the red lighting behind Biden and the two soldiers, you just see the shadowy figure of two soldiers standing aside him, looking like, I don't know if they're armed or like pointing muskets at you or something far more lethal than that. And the effect of it was designed to be intimidating. That's all purposeful. That's not accidental. This is not aesthetic, which is designed to like, ooh, isn't that like so cool? No, this is a matter of intimidation. And the words that he said that night, I will never forget.
Ocean, the most extraordinary experiment of self-government the world has ever known. With three simple words: we the people. We the people.
Everything in his tone here.
These two documents and the ideas they embody, equality and democracy, are the rock upon which this nation is built.
Yeah, that's his foundation.
They're how
of this
we
whole
became
thing.
the greatest nation on earth. They're why, for more than two centuries, that began more than 2 centuries ago.
You're not
We
gonna watch
the
the whole
people
thing.
have burning inside of each of us the flame of liberty that was lit here at Independence Hall. A flame that lit our way through abolition, the Civil War, suffrage, the Great Depression.
It's your fault.
World wars,
all your fault.
Civil rights. That sacred flame still burns. Now in our time, as we build an America that is more prosperous, free and just, That is the work of my presidency, a mission I believe in with my whole soul. But first, we must be honest with each other.
Oh,
And
what do we
with
have to be honest about,
ourselves.
Joe? Yeah?
Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal.
Oh, here we go.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
Why would you bring this up in this type of setting here, Joe? Why? Why would you do that?
Now, I want to be very clear up front. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans are MAGA Republicans. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology.
MAGA is an extreme ideology. This is what he's saying here in this setting. MAGA is an extreme ideology. Make America great again. Constitutional values is an extreme ideology.
I know, because I've been able to work with these mainstream Republicans.
Mainstream, he means neocons who basically have been in alignment with him throughout his entire 70, 80, 436-year career.
But there's no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And
Damn,
that
Skippy
is a threat to this country.
That's a threat to this country. I'm a threat to this country. You're a threat to this country. We are a threat to this country. This country that he's draping here, that his country, we are a threat.
These are hard things. But I'm an American president, not a president of red America, blue America.
Really, it looks like communist America from this angle.
But of all America. And I believe it's my duty to level with you, to tell the truth, no matter how difficult, no matter how painful.
Joey.
And here, in my view, is what is true. MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution. They do not believe in the rule of law. They do not recognize the will of the people. They refuse to accept the results of a free election. And they're working right now, as I speak, in state after state, to give power to decide elections in America to partisans and cronies, empowering election deniers to undermine democracy itself. MAGA forces are determined.
This evil, divisive. I'm the president for everyone, unless you're you're unwilling to bend the knee to me. That's essentially what he's saying here. Because MAGA refuses to bend the knee to me, and they have to be crushed.
To take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love.
Completely defaming what MAGA is about.
They promote authoritarian leaders and they fan the...
Promote authoritarian leaders. This guy giving this speech in this place, talking about how MAGA promotes authoritarian leaders.
Flames of political violence.
Political violence.
That are a threat to our personal rights.
Threats of personal
rights. To the pursuit of justice. To the rule of law. To the very soul of this country.
That's what this divider-in-chief was telling them.
They look at the mob that stormed the United States Capitol on January 6th, brutally attacking law enforcement.
Brutally.
Not as insurrectionists who placed a dagger at the throat of our democracy.
A dagger at the throat of our democracy. It's a dagger. Our democracy was just this close. We were this close to losing our democracy.
They look at them as patriots. And they see their MAGA failure to stop a peaceful transfer of power after the 2020 election as preparation for the 2022 and 2024 elections. They tried everything last time to nullify the votes of 81 million people.
Go to hell.
This time, they're determined to succeed in thwarting the will of the people. That's why respected conservatives like Federal Circuit Court Judge Michael Luttig has called Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans, quote, a clear and present danger to our democracy.
We are a clear and present danger to democracy. That's what he told the world, that we are a clear and present danger to democracy. This is the guy who said he'd be president for all Americans. telling us that we are the threat. We're the threat. It's not millions of people streaming across our border. It's not even Russia. No, it's us. It's you and me. We're the threat. I will never, ever, ever forgive this human being for saying this.
But while the threat to American democracy is real, I want to say as clearly as we can, we are not powerless in the face of these threats. We are not bystanders in this ongoing attack on democracy. There are far more Americans from every background and belief who reject the extreme MAGA ideology than those that accept it. And folks,
apparently not anymore, buddy boy. Apparently not anymore. So that's the message that he had. At some point later on, I think he refers to ultra MAGA as being like the terrible ones. Tens of millions of us, in one brushstroke, being labeled as the biggest threat to democracy. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I will never, ever, ever forgive that man for that speech. Never. Never, ever. That was when he was declaring war. And he basically was saying it's open season on going after anyone who's aligned, associated with Trump or MAGA or anything of the kind. That we are the enemy. We are the ones who are a danger to society. We are the ones who must be squashed. And I'll tell you right now, I definitely do not want to see a single individual affect the life of that man. But I do hope God rains down upon him one disease after pestilence and disaster upon he and everything ever associated with him. Because that destructive individual is a living cancer. That corrupt thief who embarrassed our country, sold us out as vice president, had his son go out there and rake millions of dollars, lied about his involvement with it over and over and over again. That disgusting human being who embarrassed America and then basically painted a freaking target on every person who wore a "Make America Great Again" hat. That person should burn in hell forever, for eternity. I hope his soul is ripped from his body. I hope every fetus who was killed because of his laws comes screaming to God about him. I hope every person who died because of his utter incompetence. And when he arrives and tries gaining entrance into what you would refer to as the pearly gates, that they come pounding in there, basically demanding that God drag his butt to hell. Terrible human being. Awful, awful, awful human being. So I say to Joe Biden, adios, die, and go to hell. Hopefully, painfully, and with utter humiliation. Anyway, so that's my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on President Joe Biden. In case you missed this, CNN does have to pay. They lost to, what's his name? Mr. Young. Is it Michael? I don't remember his first name. They had defamed a black market operator who was helping get people out of Afghanistan. And they were found liable for defaming him by calling him a black market operator. He's not a black market. I don't know in this context, hard to know what the hell black market means, but he's not some black market operator. He was a guy who was simply trying to use his knowledge and skill to help get people who out of Afghanistan, and destroyed his business through their defamation process, and it was displayed during the course of the trial that they hated this guy and basically were looking to burn this individual who they referred to as this MF, this mother effer. Yeah. So CNN can fold up shop also, although $5 million, frankly, is not nearly enough. He was suing for $1 billion. It's frustrating when they showed such actual malice, actual hatred towards the person that they lied about, that they didn't get hit with far more serious punitive damages. But it is what it is. You have to take the wins where you have them. Ex-CIA and Sarah Adams made public knowledge that our government knew ISIS sent 1,500 terrorists to infiltrate our broken borders. They only caught 300. More work for Trump to try and fix. It's horrible. Horrible. It's pretty simple. Last time we had such bad inflation was 1970s when we had an energy crisis. It happened again after Biden shut down energy with EOs on day one. Really easy to connect those dots. It's true. It's true. From 2021 to 25, my home evaluation had doubled. The state had passed 2 0.5% property tax increases in the past 4 years. Simply evil. Dude, or actually, I think it's not going to struggle as a woman. I can't even begin to tell you what's happened to my property taxes. Last I checked, it was around 12. I haven't made any modifications to my house. Last I checked, it was around 12 grand. When I moved here, it was 4. So it probably is much higher than 12. You deserve $5. That's so take this $6.50. Thank you. Thank you, Trumpinator. Member for 6 months. God bless you, brother. Oh, and he threw another $6.50 at me. Oh, take this $6.50 because that's like inflation. I appreciate that. Thank you. That's very thoughtful. Recap Biden crack pipe for Black History Month. Oh, I forgot about the Biden crack pipe. That humiliating, embarrassing scandal. Was that in 22 or 23? I was coming up to 2023. I spent the first hour on this show just talking about the first 2 years of his administration. Just talking about the first 2 years of his disastrous, terrible administration. It took me over an hour to cover the first 2 years. I called it the red speech when I watched it. It was terrifying. It was. At the time, it was very scary. Now, because the election results, it's not scary anymore. But at the time, it was very scary. Like, I was like, in my mind, there was no question he was talking about me. There was no question he was talking about me. And I'm a relatively public figure compared to most people who are going to end up watching this video. And yeah, I was just like, he's talking about me, that I'm the threat to democracy. And people who are spouting ideas like I spout to thousands of people every freaking day. So yeah, who's he talking about? I mean, he's talking. I was like, I literally thought he could throw in there just the words "good logic" whenever he wanted, and it wouldn't have ruined the flow of anything he was saying. Inline, not online, not even once. J conspiracy. Stop. They lose. They say it was their messaging that caused them to lose. True, in this case, they can't be wrong. It's how they use propaganda that matters. The $5 million was before they got the punitive damages. CNN said while the jurors were out at lunch. Oh, nice. But we don't know what that is, though. Sent a message. That's not the real Joe Biden. I'm not going through that whole thing. I don't even care. Never once. Whoever is purporting to act on behalf of Joe Biden, it's still on Joe Biden. In 2022, Roe v. Wade was tossed in the garbage. Do you believe Biden's unlawful 28th Amendment was held up because the ruling took Dems off guard? I mean 25th Amendment. You mean 25th Amendment? I don't know if that's why it got held up, but whatever. Just trying to get you over the line, in line, not online. This ain't AO. F democracy, stand with the constitutional republic. Amen. Elitant. Ellie. So I think that gets us most of the way through 2022. I think that gets us most of the way through 2022. 2023 is when we start. Is when Trump announced his candidacy, and shortly after he announced his candidacy for president, that is when we started seeing the indictments drop. The first indictment, which we later learned is certainly in cahoots with the White House, and certainly Joe Biden is, or the circle of people who purport to act in his name, and that we have no idea who they are. A lot of people speculate that Obama's one of them, but there's certainly not one individual. There's a host of individuals who are acting in his name. He basically, we saw one indictment after another. The first indictment was in New York, charged 34 counts of falsifying business records that he would later be convicted of in New York by the most ridiculous trial imaginable. An embarrassment to the New York judiciary. Everything about that was. We see him start facing one lawsuit after another. Kathy Hochul in New York changing the law in this state to enable a 20-year-old claim to all of a sudden be resurrected against him for his purported physical assault of a kooky individual who had one of the most jarring and bizarre interviews with Anderson Cooper, where she basically said that she fantasizes about all sorts of really bizarre things for any woman to ever be fantasizing about, and claiming, and she ends up winning, I don't know, $90 million in some sort of stupid, ridiculous trial. Then you had him being gagged in one case, in one trial after another. He gets hit by Letitia James with some claim for purportedly engaging in fraud in a case where he actually told the bank, "Don't rely on any statement I have here. Don't rely on these statements. I'm giving you my best guess. Go do your own due diligence." Judge Engoron circumvented that by claiming that you cannot insulate yourself from a claim of fraud by telling someone do their own due diligence when it comes to information that only you have access to, which is a logical take, but only if it's applied logically at trial. What are the sorts of things they said that they allowed at trial? Well, how many floors are in a building? This is something that apparently the banks that he paid off, and he paid completely and in full with all their interest and completed payment on those loans. This is information that apparently the banks had no way of researching. It's an active building that thousands, tens of thousands of people use every day, but the bank had no way of knowing how many floors were in the building. So obviously they had no choice but to rely on his flawed statements. He explained that those statements about how many floors was including the air rights, which in New York have an actual value, the right to build up. And that's why he was saying it has a right to be built up to that, and he counted those floors as if they're in existence. But the point being that the rule of law under Judge Engoron, as applied by Judge Engoron, was so nonsensical. Because on the one hand, you're saying, I'm allowing this claim to proceed because of information that only he had access to. And then they allowed in testimony about his fraud of one thing after another that everyone on the planet who has access to the internet has easy access to that information. Why is that part of his fraud? With respect to his golf courses in Scotland and how many units are built up on it, that supposedly he engaged in fraud there too. No one could fly a helicopter over there when you're giving him loans for tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. None of this made any sense at all. And when he's complaining about it, well, let's gag him. Why not? Let's gag him. And he gets gagged in that civil suit that was filed by Letitia James, which landed him with a $460 million judgment, a judgment that no one can actually, is an astonishing figure. They just basically kept writing zeros. Like the jury basically was like, how many zeros is there room in there for us to put in there? And that's how many zeros in the little form that they give us. And they're like, oh, we can only manage to put 7 zeros after the 46. Oh, okay. So and I'll just fill it up with zeros. Just it was just insanity. There's only 9-digit space here on this little form. Oh, okay. Well, let's fill them up. I think it's meant to have 0.00 at. No. They'll know that we mean dollars on. Fortunately, that does seem as if it's going to be overturned. And every time they charged him with something, he simply grew stronger and stronger. But the Democrats were far too stupid to recognize it. And they kept coming after him again and again, not just in those civil suits, but you had the New York criminal indictment with 34 indictments. That was followed up by the Florida case that was filed against him and Walter Nauta, which was claiming that he had engaged in some sort of issue with taking documents, lest we forget all the stuff that came out about Joe Biden and Mike Pence taking documents back. But there's nothing wrong with what they did. The problem is when Trump took it, this is now criminal. No one else is it a crime for. Obama took a freaking library with him when he left the White House. That's no big deal. Trump is endangering the entire world. He's giving nuclear sub-secrets to the Russians when he brings documents to Mar-a-Lago. Apparently, that's what the claim was in Florida. And Rickson and let's bring in Jack Smith here, special prosecutor who's never been confirmed, hasn't gone through all the regulations. You know, that whole confirmation process that we're watching all these different Trump nominees go through. Jack Smith never endured that once in his life, and that's actually a necessity if you're going to actually be a special prosecutor. Later ended up, Judge Eileen Cannon said, you can't go forward with this case because Jack Smith is here. Judge Chutkan, meanwhile, in D.C., was like, that's no problem at all. That's no problem at all. We're going to go forward with our case here for what's not insurrection, but sort of an insurrection type charge, but not really at all insurrection, because he's definitely not guilty under the law of insurrection. But we're going to pretend that he's done something here. And then we see 4 indictments dropped, the 4th one obviously being in Georgia, Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade. And they're all excited when they come running out here. And all the Democrats, you know what they're saying? The walls are closing in. The walls are closing in. We finally got him, boys. Girls, we got him. We finally got him. Sorry, I would mistakenly misgender anyone. So the walls were closing in on Donald Trump. And every time those walls were closing in, getting closer and closer, he got richer and richer and more popular as everyone was like, what the hell is happening here? And we saw the birth of the term lawfare, which was properly applied to this. And he keeps getting gagged in Washington and gagged in this case and gagged in the New York civil case and gagged in the New York criminal case. And all this craziness where they're basically just, how do we get this guy? How do we kill this beast? How do we kill the beast? Not realizing that they literally were fortifying him, because a lot of people who would later vote for Donald Trump had pretty much given up on him. Even after he announced his candidacy. You might have forgotten this. He announced his candidacy, and 10 minutes later, he's inviting Kanye West and Nick Fuentes to have dinner with him. And people are like, what the hell are you doing? Why? Why would you? Why? What's happening here? What is happening? But then he gets indicted, and you're just like, well, I don't like that. And then he gets indicted again. You're like, what the hell's happening here? And every time we would find more information about Hunter Biden, and we start learning more about the whole Ukraine thing, and that starts getting hot and heavy. Every time a new story broke, there was a day later, there's a new indictment being dropped on Donald Trump. The timing was so ridiculous and such a joke that we actually came to be able to predict, oh, okay, fine. There's a new breaking, here's a new whistleblower coming out telling us more about what the hell happened with Joe Biden. We knew that within 36, 48 hours, there's going to be some new breaking story. Trump now indicted in Florida. The breaking story. New indictments dropping in Georgia. And then we started seeing the turncoats, the scaredy cats. Most notorious amongst them being Jenna Ellis, who, when she was named as a co-defendant, decided, I'm going to turn against Donald Trump. First, I'm going to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars from his followers for my legal fees. And I want to be crystal clear about this. It's difficult to judge anyone who's being charged by the government and say, you should have stood there and taken it. I would not say that. I can understand that unless you're the one facing potential life imprisonment, you cannot appreciate how terrifying those pressures can be. I get that. But you cannot, in one breath, draw breath and create a GoFundMe and start begging Donald Trump supporters to help fund your defense. And then as soon as you raise $250,000, turn around the next day and stab Trump in the back. When you know the only reason you got that money is because they're trying to help you stand with Trump. And even if you decided, look, I don't know how things unfolded, maybe some news broke that really rattled her, that she was in potential legal jeopardy. It's possible if you want to give her the benefit of the doubt. Jenna Ellis, I'm talking about now, it's Trump's former lawyer who was named as a co-defendant in the Georgia RICO case, who would later cut a deal with Fani Willis. Even if some new development had caused her to do an about face, so initially she's going to fight the charges and she helps raise money and she gets hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then she turns around and then then Fani Willis or some other knucklehead who works in Fulton County came and showed her something that scared her and jarred her, and she's like, okay, I'm going to cut a deal now. That's possible that happened. But why are you the only one who allocutes? Allocution is when a person pleads guilty and makes a statement to the judge, public statement to the judge about their guilt. Plenty of people turned, the 19 defendants, plenty of them turned and said, I'm not willing, I can't face this type of heat. And I'm not passing judgment on any of them. I'm passing judgment specifically on Jenna Ellis because she had no duty to allocute. The judge even told her, you do not need to allocute. No, I need to get up here and tell you how wrong I was for supporting Donald Trump. It was horrible. I feel so bad and I'm so embarrassed that I did that. There was no need for it. There's no need for any of that. That's where you're scum. That's the moment that you show you're a scummy human being, because you're looking to be embraced by the left like Adam Kinzinger. Lest we forget the whole J6 and that ridiculous committee, which frankly I should have brought up earlier during the show tonight, and that ridiculous dog and pony show there where they're just trying to get, just the lunacy, and people are TiVoing it in DC, the craziness of the J6 committee and the ridiculous, obvious lies with the stupid clavicle girl who coming out there saying, I'm a former staffer, and what happened was he tried jumping onto the driver of the beast, and he's trying to rip him down. The Secret Service trying to yank him off the driver, and he's yanking and he's punching here, and they're punching him back. Some kind of thing like it looked like she saw in some freaking movie. All this nonsense that we had to suffer through while hearing about how terrible every person who was associated with J6 is. Oh my God, the calamity of J6. Oh, this is the worst event ever, clearly the worst event. Clearly terrible. Meanwhile, we kick out more money to Ukraine, throwing our arms around Zelensky, giving him a freaking parade as they bring him into the House. Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi like barking seals. Oh, he's here. Let's give him another check. God. So yeah. And all that came crashing down. 91 criminal charges levied against Trump, of which he will serve 0 days for any of it. And even the 34 convictions he got are just an utter embarrassment to the New York judiciary, more than a statement about anything he ever did wrong. That was the last 4 years in review. How'd I do? Did I miss anything? Did I miss anything important? I think I got it all. I think I covered it all. That was the terribleness of Joe Biden. Worst president in living memory. Bypassing Jimmy Carter is a difficult thing to do, but he did. Somehow he did. No, not the 25th. I mean, Biden's 28th Amendment that Biden just shoved down our throats yesterday, which he was already told violates the Constitution. The ramblings of some addled old man is not making it part of the Constitution. So I wouldn't lose sleep over it. Even the Atlantic, left-leaning, crazy loser Atlantic is just like, I don't know what the hell is wrong with this lunatic old man. This is the Atlantic reporting on it over here. That's not how constitutional amendments work. President's Declaration of Equal Rights Amendment is the law of the land, doesn't make it so. There you go. So yeah, don't worry about that idiot. Chicago Jan, new member. Welcome to the following, Chicago Jan. Oh, hope I didn't embarrass you with that. Talking docs. Doesn't every president do it for their libraries? Yeah, they all do. They all do. Trump did not invite Nick Fuentes. He kept Kanye West, and Kanye brought Nick Fuentes without telling Trump that he was coming. Nick Fuentes got in there. I just think you're splitting hairs there. Jenna Ellis, sociology, women, social acceptance. Everything about her is a humiliation. It's terrible, terrible, terrible person. Todd Larson, God bless you. I'm about to tick some people up because some people don't like the war horn, but the war horn is coming in 3, 2, 1. That's what happens. That's what happens. God bless you. Thank you for the very generous super chat. For the leader of the pack. That's why they call him. That was off key. One of the J6 prosecutors being indicted for attacking a man with a knife. I saw that down in Florida, right? That lunatic. This trial's supposed to be coming soon, I think. General Flynn Lawfare as well. Oh, I forgot about the General Flynn Lawfare. I did forget about that. But that was during Trump's administration, I think. Yeah, that was during his administration. The General Flynn Lawfare had actually resolved itself before Trump stepped down in 2020. That's why we all fell in love with Sidney Powell until we realized that she was kind of deranged after the election in 2020. One day Flynn is investigating people inside government only to have then he's investigating and interrogating him. That was all, from my recollection, that was all prior to Biden taking office. So that's deep state shenanigans, but not part of the Biden administration by my reckoning. So there you go, an hour and a half breakdown of the last 4 years of the most terrible president hopefully we ever will see. The most terrible president. And what do we got now? What do we got now? Well, this is how much the country has changed. Snoop Dogg, who made a video in which he was conducting a mock execution of Trump. Is playing Snoop Dogg, a mock execution of Trump, is playing at Trump's inauguration parties. That's what we have now. That's what we have. What do we have now? We have clowns like this guy here bemoaning, I don't even know who this guy is, bemoaning the death of the Republican Party and how it's been taken over by MAGA. Remember? Yeah, that MAGA. The MAGA who's the threat to democracy.
Donald Trump has just remade this Republican Party into one that I don't recognize. I don't think George Bush or John McCain could.
Trust me, nobody recognizes you either. What the hell is with that hat and that outfit? I don't know what's happening here. I don't know who this guy is, but
Even have been elected or gotten through a primary here.
yeah, that's right. They
today.
wouldn't. They wouldn't.
I thought before that there might be
The
some
hell with Bush, the hell with
rebuilding
McCain.
of the Republican Party in a new way that maybe was new or reflected the old way of Reagan and Bush and McCain. That's clearly not going to happen now. So for disaffected Republicans like me, there's not much of a future in the Trump Republican Party. There's not going to be another party. It's
Thank God.
going to be the Trump Republican Party probably for as long as I live now.
And hopefully many, many decades and centuries beyond that.
Donald Trump has just remade this.
Hopefully forevermore. Hopefully we've seen the death of your Republican Party. Anyone who's celebrating McCain is a sad, pathetic individual. Someone referenced how Mike Johnson exposed when you talk about just how little Joe Biden was aware of anything. There's a clip that's viral, that's gone viral now, was shared by Elon Musk. It was first shared by Phil Holloway, actually, and Elon Musk retweeted it, which now makes it viral. Of this clip of Mike Johnson from the Free Press in D.C., where he's describing just how little Biden knows about anything that he did over the last 4 years.
I do stand by it, and I say this without any personal animus at all. I mean, in some ways, I actually kind of feel sorry for Joe Biden. I mean, he's in the twilight years of his life. He is not, obviously, has not been in charge for some time. And I know this by personal observation, and now the whole world knows it. And it's been very, very concerning to me over the last, year and a half since I've had this
Can you
position.
tell us a story when you say personal observation? What
Well,
kind
I
of
mean,
thing did you see?
it's public now because the Wall Street Journal got it and put it on the front page. But January a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, I had been asked. I became speaker in October 2023, and there were all sorts of big national security concerns and everything going on. And I started requesting a meeting with the president because, I'm kind of old school. I'm a constitutional law guy. Speaker of the House should be able to talk to the president, especially in times of great national interest and calamity. But they wouldn't let me meet with him, and his staff kept giving me excuses. This went on for like 8 or 9 weeks. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, he doesn't have time. What are you talking about? I'm second in line of the presidency. He has time. I need to talk.
Third, but yeah.
We had, I can't say the classified parts, but we had some big national concerns at the time that I was.
What big national concerns did we have a year ago? I don't even know what he's talking about here. I guess they were talking about World War III. I don't know.
Losing sleep over. Finally, I just went to the Hill press corps and I said, the president is not being allowed to meet with the speaker. There's a problem. So they started putting pressure on him. Long story short, they finally relented. They invited me to the White House. I show up and I realize it's actually an ambush because it's not just me and the president. It's also Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem, the CIA director, everybody. And then, so I walked in the Oval and, I know what this is. They're going to
hold on. Who did he list off there?
So they started putting pressure on him. Long story short, they finally relented. They invited me to the White House. I show up and I realize it's actually an ambush because it's not just me and the president. It's also Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem, the CIA director, everybody. And then, so I walked in the Oval and, I know what this is. They're going to hotbox the speaker on Ukraine funding. That's what it was. This is probably third week of January.
Which he caved on.
We sit down, we're in the midst of it, and the whole conversation, and I'm going, we don't need to have this conversation. The president reaches over just like this. We're sitting right next to the fireplace in the Oval, and he grabs my arm and he says, the speaker and I just need a couple minutes together. Would y'all just leave us alone? And I looked up on the faces of some of the staff standing around the wall, and they're like, oh, no, he did it. So he called it. He's the commander in chief. So everybody leaves, and he and I are standing awkwardly in the middle of the Oval Office, right over the rug by that coffee table. And I said, Mr. President, thanks for the moments. This is very important. I got some big national security things I need to talk to you about that I've heard, and I think and what do we do? But first, real quickly, Mr. President, can I ask you a question? I cannot answer this from my constituents in Louisiana. Sir, why did you pause LNG exports to Europe? I don't understand.
LNG is liquefied natural gas. So we were sending exports to Europe. And by executive order, Biden said, we can't export them to Europe anymore. And he's like, I don't understand why you would do that.
There's, liquefied natural gas is in great demand by our allies. Why would you do that? Because you understand, we just talked about Ukraine. You understand you're fueling Vladimir Putin's war machine because they got to get their gas from him, And he looks at me stunned with this, and he said, I didn't do that. And I said, Mr. President, yes, you did. It was an executive order 3 weeks ago. And he goes, no, I didn't do that. And he's arguing with me. I said, Mr. President, respectfully, could I go out here and ask your secretary to print it out? We'll read it together. You definitely did that. And he goes, oh, you talk about natural gas. Yes, sir. He said, no, you misunderstand. He said, what I did is I signed this thing we're going to conduct a study on the effects of LNG. I said, no, you're not, sir. You paused it. I know. I have the export terminals in my state. I talked to those people this morning. This is doing massive damage to our economy, national security. It occurred to me, Barry, he was not lying to me. He genuinely did not know what he had signed. And I walked out of that meeting with fear and loathing because I thought, we're in serious trouble. Who is running the country? I don't know who put the paper in front of him, but he didn't know.
That's astonishing. It's astonishing. Should rip up every executive order he signed, every single one of them, just because we don't even know if he knows what he signed. Every single one of them. That should happen Monday. Every executive order overturned. Every single one of them. We have no idea if he knows what the hell he did. Unbelievable. The orange-faced minstrel is hella offensive. It was. No more TikTok videos. That's right. TikTok is now suppressed in the United States by law that has been upheld by the Supreme Court. TikTok is officially banned in the United States. What Libs of TikTok is going to do, I don't know. Trump supposedly said he's going to give them 90 days to sell so that they don't have to, they can operate during the next 90 days, and he's going to allow them to sell. Or anytime, then they'll be able to continue their operations during that time. But TikTok is no more. Decision that came down from the court focused essentially on the fact that this is a matter of national security, and they're going to give great deference to issues of national security. They also focused on the rights of China to issue speech here and kind of sidestep the rights of creators to use TikTok as a microphone, and thereby made it less about American civil liberties and more about a foreign agency trying to control speech and issue speech, and basically decline that they have any right to have any civil liberties here in this country at all. Which, once you do that, it's a no-brainer. If you're going to come from that position, it's a no-brainer to uphold the law that was banning TikTok or any majority-owned foreign countries' majority-owned corporation from spreading messaging through social media. TikTok being the most notorious one out of all of them. There's all sorts of talk about Elon Musk buying TikTok. Frankly, I'd far prefer him to buy YouTube. To me, that's that would be far more significant. But if he's going to buy anything, so this way I don't have to jump through hurdles every time I want to talk to you about anything that the current leaders of TikTok have an issue with and their ridiculous disinformation regulations. But yeah, I don't care if he buys TikTok or not. I don't care. I don't care very much about TikTok at all. I mean, I would occasionally watch TikTok videos. Occasionally I would. But it's not something that I really care very much about at all. Those people who invested in creating large TikTok accounts, I do question the approach of the Supreme Court in ignoring the impact, the obvious impact on free speech of creators who are American creators who are looking to use TikTok to share information. But the law is the law. In my opinion on the law, doesn't really matter. And I can understand the notion, and I talked on this channel before about the right to hear versus the right to speak, which are not the same thing, nor should they be the same thing. And the philosophical basis to say that there's a right to speech that is greater than your right to hear. And I analogized, if you want to go back to when, civil rights came out. And I think this is sort of the perspective that the Supreme Court was sort of looking at, which is, imagine 250 years ago, there was a boat that came from a foreign nation that was filled with all sorts of, filled with hundreds of thousands of pamphlets that was trying to spread some sort of ideology that is found objectionable. Let's assume communism had existed then, which it didn't. I know it was first formed in the 19th century, not the 18th century. But some sort of ideology which was antithetical to the United States of America, and they want to they want to debark. Is it debark? Is that the right word? That's not. That sounds like totally the wrong. Disembark their cargo into an American port, and the local government or the federal government says we don't want to allow this material into our country. I think that you can understand that they would have that right. Right? I mean, I think that they definitely would have that right. That freedom of speech wouldn't apply to them. And your right to hear or read those periodicals is not the same as your right to express yourself. The reason for freedom of speech, there's a lot of reasons for our fundamental right of freedom of speech, and those rights of freedom of speech are that your speech is a part of defining characteristic of your humanity, of expressing yourself as an individual. And restricting that is wrong. Well, that's really a privilege that Americans need to have. But the right for people to be exposed to that speech is far less significant than that core of I need to express who I am, of to say that there's a similar type of protection of I need to be exposed to anything someone might want to express to me. That's just not the same thing. I do think it should be a civil liberty that's protected, but not perhaps with the same level of strict scrutiny. I think it is a civil liberty, the right to hear, but it's not the same thing. And that when in the Ninth Amendment we say that not all liberties are enumerated in the Bill of Rights, there are other liberties that should be protected. That part of one of those liberties is freedom to hear, but that's not the same level of protection that we afford the sacrosanct liberty of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, right to assemble, things of that nature. Dark Chaz is not just a new member, but he also came on in here and hit me with 5 new members of the following. Thank you. God bless you, Dark Chaz. Those of you who were brought in, can I still see who's of the following?
12 months, it has fallen.
Can I still see who we brought in here? Is that possible? It's possible. What did he bring me? Not me, but the following, because I'm not the following. I'm not even the leader of the following. I'm just the host. He brought in Chris, Cortland Beal, Brewholic 101, JD, and someone else that I can't find. And Finding Dory. Oh, look at that. Finding Dory brought into the following. If you're new to the following is not at all a cult type of cult. Like, not there's no Kool-Aid. There's no spaceships. There's no tracksuits that are mandatory. There's no throwing virgins into volcanoes. There's no dancing around bonfires while shucking off your clothing to the beat of a tom-tom and chanting rhythmically. There's no squirrel mutilations, no goat sacrifices. It's not at all a cult type of cult. It's just a gathering of like-minded individuals who are striving for greater personal growth through community, unity, and leadership training. It's not at all a cult type of cult. So welcome, and thank you. God bless you. Dark Chaz. Dark Chaz. Twilight Zone years for sure. There was disaster. It was utter disaster. Maybe Chaya Rachik will find a shidduch. Maybe. Are you okay, Cars and Depth? Are you okay? I'm going to pause the show here. I want to pause the show for a moment here. Those of you who are unfamiliar with longtime viewer Cars in Depth are probably aware. Those of you who are newer to the channel may not be aware of the fact that Cars in Depth here is an avid and loyal and dedicated Detroit Lion fan. If you're not following the NFL, you might not be aware of the fact that the Detroit Lions had a phenomenal season, record-breaking season, with an offense which seemed completely unstoppable. I mean, completely. They were just a dynamic, electric, terrifying to any defensive coordinator. Led by Jared Goff, with the likes of David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Williamson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. Pretty fierce offensive line. Just a terrifying offense and a defense that could hold its own on most days. And we're gonna tear figuratively, because I like this shirt. We're going to tear some cloth for the 2014, 2020, God, I'm old, 2024 Lions season, which came to a screeching and shocking halt tonight, where they fell to the Washington something. No one knows what they are. But they fell to Jaden Daniels when they basically could not have an answer as to how to stop that man, or Brian Robinson, or an assortment of journeyman wide receivers. But they had a great season. And I really do kind of like the Lions a little bit. And I'm sad to see them go. I was hoping they would win that game. So I'm sad that they see it go. And I'm sad for those of you long-suffering Lions fans who haven't seen a championship in the last 70 years? Long time. And I thought that this was your chance to at least go to the big dance. The number 1 seed. Record-breaking offense. Like the point differential, 220 points. Great year. It's probably very tough for you. And I'm just telling you, I feel for you. I really do. I'm not mocking you. I genuinely feel for you. So it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And hopefully Chaya Raichik will find a shidduch. Hopefully 2025 is her year. In case you don't know, the term finding a shidduch is what Jews refer to when a Jewish single gets married. That's what his reference is there. If a tree falls in a forest, there's a right to make a sound, but that doesn't mean someone has a right to has to listen. Well, doesn't mean the government has to let people listen, basically, I guess. I guess that's what we're saying ultimately here. I had a lot more I wanted to cover with you here. I'm not even close to being finished. I know. There's a lot of things that are happening right now. So first and foremost, I expect that we're going to have an inauguration. I expect there to be an inauguration. Not everyone is on the same page as I am. No, there are a few astute individuals who believe that there's not going to be an inauguration. And we should hear from them, just so you get the both sides of the story type of reporting that I like to give my viewers. So here's an individual who thinks there's not going to be any, an astute individual who thinks there's not going to be any inauguration.
He is not going to be sworn in.
There you go. He's not going to be sworn in. That's what this Temple alumni is telling you.
And he will not be our next president.
Oh, wow.
How I know that for certain comes from the knowledge, some information I found out last night that I didn't know.
Okay. Tell us. Share with us.
We all know that when Biden was sworn in, the one person not present at his inauguration was who? Donald Trump.
Right. He wasn't invited.
He lacked the character to be there.
Joe Biden said it was the guest of honor. He said he's not welcome.
Sharing another man's joy, to have the character to say, I didn't win the election, you did.
He wasn't welcome. So you're kind of lying about that.
But here's a guy that's been given everything on a silver platter his whole life.
Really? I don't know. He faced 4 indictments over the last 2 years and managed to not spend a day in jail. So there's that.
He was born on third base and thought he hit a triple.
Oh, you all thought the walls were closing in on him over and over again for all these alleged crimes.
And
I wonder if he just wrote that. He's very proud of that analogy. I wonder if he just came up with it.
He couldn't be at Joe Biden's inauguration. So
he wasn't allowed.
What I found out last night
wasn't wanted.
Is
what'd you find out?
I'm thinking, when is Donald Trump going to be arrested? And now I know that he's going to be arrested at his inauguration.
At his inauguration. Well, my God, that would be historic. That would be amazing. So he's going to show up there. You see, he thinks he's going to show up there. And that he's going to be sworn in. No. That's where the cops will finally find him. They're not going to do it beforehand. No, they're going to wait till the inauguration. Right when he's walking up there, all of a sudden the police are going to come in there and say, "Excuse me, please face the wall." That's what's going to happen.
Because there's going to be 3 people not present there.
Which 3?
They are Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton, and their wives will not be
That's more than 3 people. That's at least 5, and depending on how you count Big Mike.
Present at Donald Trump's inauguration on Monday. They will not be there.
Really? That's not actually accurate.
Not just because they know that he's an asshole,
but they're going to be there. They actually notified that they will be there.
They don't want to be near him or around him,
but they will be.
But because it's a security risk.
How's a security risk if he's going to be arrested? Won't they be very secure if he's arrested?
Security risk that they don't want our presidents to be subject to.
So if Barack and Bill Clinton and Bush are there, then he can't be arrested. But the way I know he's going to be arrested is because they're not going to be there. So first and foremost, you're mistaken. And this is a mistake. The real reason I'm sharing this video with you is because I thought this was A, hilarious, and B, this is a mistake a lot of people made that I myself made when I first heard this report about them not attending. They're not attending the inaugural lunch. They are confirmed to attend the inauguration. Now, that's before the inauguration was moved, and we're going to get more on that soon. But they are, at least were scheduled based on where it originally was, and likely even where it ever ends up being, that they're supposed to be in attendance. They're not going to be at the inaugural lunch, which is a customary thing for former presidents to attend, but they are going to be at his inauguration. So there's that kind of misinformation that Blue and here is giving you. Why they couldn't be there while he was being arrested is just beats the snot out of me.
The inauguration, the steps that have been taken, 30 miles of high quality, well-built fencing. This is very difficult to negotiate. It's not easy to get over. 30 miles.
So if he tries to escape the police, he's got 30 miles of fencing to deal with here.
Of that. Cement blocks and 25,000 law enforcement officers. Those things are in place to quelch a second insurrection. Because the powers that be know that the Proud Boys and girls there that are invited into Washington, D.C. this Sunday to celebrate Donald Trump's victory. That's why he invited them in on Sunday, so they can celebrate. He knows that they're there.
I'm going to be there Sunday. I'm going there later today.
Come to his back because he knows something's up.
No, he does. He doesn't want people there for his inauguration in general. He just wants people there as security, a big crowd.
Have his back on Monday. The systems are in place. They can't have his back. They can attempt to have his back, but they'll be arrested and put down. So there you go. This is probably one of my most meaningful videos. One of my reaching out to you. Hopefully it'll be one of my shortest. I'm learning to curb it. I'm going to be.
This is what was inspired by that stupid red speech that Biden gave. Lunatics like this. Lunacy. I mean, like just like the decay in this man's mind. That's what was inspired by Joe Biden. Terrible human being. I stopped caring about my teams losing when I realized I was being short with my family after a Red Wings loss. I enjoy the wins with my kids. So that's a very healthy approach. I'm glad for you. Good. I'm very glad for you. 4 on third base is wild. Me, not till 10th grade. No! Yet! 9! No! This is wrong. It's totally, it's so wrong. That's wrong. It's just wrong. Not a good analogy. How in the world do you hit a triple if you're on third base? No, the point, that's a carry, meaning someone else is carrying him to victory. No, the point is you're born in third base and think you hit a triple. That's Temple guy is John Goodman's retarded brother, probably. I don't know. Oh gosh. I still can't believe you dropped this on me. That's just wrong. All right. Speaking of people being swept out. Let this go. Oh, so we're talking about the inauguration. I don't know what the deal is with the inauguration. I don't buy this that Alex Jones is selling. I'm just telling you, he's right about a lot of things. And he's not saying it himself. He's quoting a source. He says who his source is. I don't buy it. But there's a claim that he might not wait till noon on January 20th to be inaugurated.
Walter Kurt in the past has been a accurate reporter, investigative journalist, talk show host, and he's there in D.C. Getting footage of Trump's motorcade and what looks like anti-drone technology on top of the armored SUVs. We know that they've been, for supposed weather reasons, moving Trump's inauguration into the Capitol Rotunda. But now, according to his sources in the last few hours, Trump is going to be sworn in at the White House, maybe even at midnight tonight. And with all the crazy stuff going on, the FBI is going to worry about terror attacks. And with the borders wide open for the last 4 years with Biden and all the Islamicists and people coming in, who knows? But we are in the real danger zone regardless. We've already tried to kill Trump twice. The deep state is totally desperate, so pray for President Trump. And to pray for everybody that's going to be in D.C. Trump's having an event tomorrow that starts at 3 p.m. at one of the big arenas. I covered that on the show I did today. But we're continuing to watch all of this as it unfolds, but a lot of crazy activity. They always have this for big events, but still they have the government helicopters there looking for radiological, radioactive material. And when he gets in there on Monday and is sworn in, the deep state is in big trouble. They committed a lot of crimes. So this is a very, very dangerous time. And in less than 48 hours till he's sworn in, if they do it Monday. But again, I need to talk to that journalist. He said maybe sworn in tonight. I think he means tomorrow night, midnight, they can legally do that.
He sent this earlier today. So he's saying Sunday night at midnight.
But
under the Constitution, he can only be sworn in on January 20th. Does that be noon? No, it couldn't, I guess, be at 12:01 a.m. on January 20th.
That would be January 20th on Monday, not tonight. So we'll watch this very, very closely and see if it's accurate. I have no doubt he's had sources tell him this. He's there in D.C. reporting. He's broken a lot of stories in the past. I've seen them be accurate, but we're following this. I'll probably try to get him, obviously, on the show tomorrow. If this is really happening, I'll be going back into the office tonight. I mean, I'll go in at 2 a.m. if this is going down and report on what's happening. All right, follow me on X. We're all.
So there you go. No one knows where he's being sworn in. They don't even know when he's being sworn in. I'm scheduled to be at the Capitol Mall Monday in the freezing cold. It's supposed to be really, really cold down in DC. It's not that cold here where I'm at in New Jersey, but supposedly they're talking about snow tomorrow. I am planning on driving down there. Maybe I'll have a locals. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll have a locals drive down. That would be at goodlogic.locals.com. Goodlogic.locals.com. So no one knows what the story is, but we do know is that there are protests. And what are they protesting? Apparently, they're protesting everything. Yes, everything. They're protesting everything.
This is right outside our D.C. apartment. This is one of the craziest rallies I've ever seen, about 15,000 people. Got to show you here some tape in a minute, but this is the everything. If you want to protest anything, this is it. Here's some of them we caught. Free D.C., free Luigi, free Palestine, pink hats, free Sudan. I don't even know what that's about. Cancel SCOTUS. There's also a guy carrying a humongous cross like Jesus did. Free the trans, free LGBTQ, pro-choice, trust black women. This thing goes on and on. I've never seen a protest where you can protest everything all at the same time. Right outside our window in Washington, D.C. There's a protest going on, probably like 10, 15,000 people involved. It's going on for an hour. This is the protest everything. They're protesting everything. It's free D.C. It's free.
One of the things I've said before is that if you have a movement means we're here and we have an agenda to get to this place. You have an end game. When you don't have that, it's just we're mad about injustice and what justice would look like. We can't all agree on. That's not a movement. That's just chaos. And here we have the personification of chaos. Just, free gas, free healthcare, free everything. Free Palestine, free Sudan, free Luigi, free everything.
Luigi, it's screw healthcare. They don't like Trump. They don't like SCOTUS. This is the protest. Everything you're mad at.
This is the screaming children protest. That's what this is.
What the topic is, it's absolutely hilarious, I have to say, because nothing makes any sense. But the main thing here is free DC. Not even sure what they mean by that. I guess because the Republicans want to take the thing over because it's such a catastrophe. But this is where we are. You're not going to see this on the.
Whenever you see something that purports to be a movement and is not a movement, it's being led by grifters who are getting rich from it. Always, every time.
But there's a bunch of signs here that say free Luigi. The guy shot an innocent man in the back and assassinated him. These people want to free him. But it doesn't matter. It's save the birds, save the seagulls. I don't know if there's any seagulls. Somebody had a sign, save the seagulls. What seagulls in Washington, D.C.?
Free the seagulls.
What is going on here? It's a very peaceful protest. The police are all here. They got the outhouses going. But it's about 10, 15,000 people. It keeps going on forever. But here we are in Washington, D.C. We also got the pink hatters here. So you got pink hats going on. So absolutely hilarious. Welcome to Washington, D.C., right at the middle of the inauguration.
And that's where I'm going to be in 12 hours. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. Joe, hit me up, jerk. Okay. You want to put me up for a night? I've got a hotel already. But 20th Amendment says term begins 12 p.m. 120. Does it really? Does it really? Perhaps he'd be sworn in before the term, and then it only takes effect on noon. I'll check that out. I don't remember that, but it's possible. It does say 20th day of January and term senators representatives at noon on the 3rd day of January, which will end at noon on the 20th day of January. It does say that. That's good job, dude. Good job. Proof of saying the issue isn't the issue. The issue is the revolution. I'd be there with the sign, free donuts. Yes. Free donuts. Free freaking donuts. Something's got to be done. Something's got to be done, for crying out loud. Free donuts. At the People's March, which that's what that thing was. It was the People's March. I guess the they-them march was taken. So, Andy No reported, while we're covering this march, a trans person spoke at the People's March to oppose the inauguration of Trump. The group is rebranded Women's March after it fell apart due to internal fighting and accusations of white supremacy. A fraction showed up compared to 2017. Let's hear this woman speaking.
I refuse to be pushed aside and silenced.
Oh, God. Please, your voice alone is why you should be
And
silent.
I stand in front of you as a proud Southern Black trans queer woman. Now, are y'all gonna take up space? Okay. So if you feel disempowered, if you feel angry and afraid, it's time to take up space. If you know
They
that
use all these weird languages like take up space.
women and girls and dolls and femmes are the rulers of their own lives, take up space.
I can't help promote their ridiculous talking points. And it's not very Brad of me, I know, but it's not very Brad of me. Speaking of people who have been taking up space, however, and are no longer taking up space, there's this guy.
But the story that has been told by some outside of this building about what has happened inside of it is wrong.
Yeah. Meaning, whenever he goes out and tells people what's happening inside, he's lying. That's what it means. When he says the story that people tell outside this building about what's going on inside this building is wrong, I'm saying this is an admission on his part that he's lied to Congress numerous times about what he himself has done.
You have worked to pursue justice, not politics.
They have, not you, though.
That is the truth.
Scummy.
And nothing can change it. You are professionals of the utmost integrity who are worthy of the trust of the American people.
Yeah, well, they don't trust him because of who their leader was.
I know that you do not do this work for public recognition. You do this work because you are public servants.
Because it's a good check and it's a good resume builder.
But I also know that a lot has been said about this department, about people outside of it, by people outside of it, about what your job is and what it is not, and about why you do your work the way you do it. I know that over the years, some have criticized the department, saying it has allowed politics to influence its decision-making. I know that you have faced unfounded,
which was obvious over and over and over again. Even when they prosecuted Hunter Biden, the tiny charges they dropped on Hunter Biden was governed by politics.
Attacks simply for doing your job. At the very same time, you have risked your lives to protect our country.
Really? The DOJ risking their lives? That's a bit much.
From a range of foreign and domestic threats.
No, the domestic threats. I heard all about those domestic threats. This is why TikTok was shut down. Because this is Chinese, this is communist messaging right there. That's why they were shut down. Snow is starting. This is Adrian, who's in D.C. Snow is starting in D.C. at 6 a.m., expecting 4 inches by evening. Best weather, radio, weather, and traffic every 10 minutes on the 8s. WTOP 103.5 FM. Please drive safely. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the heads up on that. And I'll do my best. People's March. Sounds like some commie nonsense. Here's some pocket change to pick up a few extra hand warmers, toss into a pocket. No need to be miserable in the cold. I don't think I'm going to end up in the cold. I don't think my tickets are going to end up being usable because I think it's not going to happen, the event. That's what I'm expecting to happen. But we'll see. We'll see. I was offered a free ticket to the Liberty Ball. What I learned is that I probably need a tuxedo, and I don't have a tuxedo. So I don't expect to be attending the Liberty Ball. Frankly, Liberty Ball is supposed to take place. It's an inauguration ball. It's supposed to take place Monday evening. I don't expect to still be in D.C. Monday evening. So I don't expect to be there. But if one of you makes a compelling claim that I should make sure it's making my business to be there, I will listen to that. But I would have to get my hands on a tux. I'm not sure how that's going to happen on such short notice anyway. So if they swear Trump in at 12 a.m., we have two presidents from 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. on 120. Well, according to the Constitution, his term wouldn't start until noon. So I think that they can swear him in, and then it would take the effectiveness would only kick in at noon. Right? There's always going to be some overlap or underlap or something. Like they do it at 12:05. So who's president for those 5 minutes? Biden's term ends at noon. So there's going to be some overlap there unless he gets sworn in beforehand. And I think his term doesn't officially, he has no presidential power until noon. I think that's the way it works. That makes the most sense to me, at least. That's what makes the most sense to me. So that was Merrick Garland. And Nick Sorter pointing out here that Pam Bondi needs to watch this video. Watch this video. Every second's video and fire every single one of the stupid clapping seals from Merrick Garland as he leaves. Anyone supporting the most corrupt AG in history cannot be trusted. Fire them all. Look at this crazy reception this crooked man got. And I agree 100% with Nick Sorter on this. I'm hoping to meet Nick Sorter over the next 48 hours. That would be cool. Every one of them. That guy was like, "Don't fist pump me. I know they're taking notes on this, and they're making lists." What the hell did he accomplish? Seriously, what did he accomplish that they're all so cheering him, like barking like seals? This is for the J6 conviction. DC is filled with that. Present company excluded me, my viewers from DC. These are all a bunch of friggin' They're everywhere. Notifies all of them. Yeah. Clean out the entire thing. Congratulations. Any person who hugged him, slapped him. Maybe some people, you can give some people the benefit of the doubt that they're smiling that he's gone. Fire them all. Burn. Set fire to them. I feel like I'm the Mad King. Burn them. Burn them all. Burn them all. Maybe that's why I'm not AG. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why. I don't know. I don't know. I've been here for over 2 hours, which means I put in my time. I have. Obama wasn't officially sworn until 3 days later. Who was president during that time? I think it was him. Is that really true? Why wasn't he sworn until 3 days later? Is that really true? I didn't think of that. Thanks. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. I think it's time. And by the way, Sherry Lawlessness, member for 13 months. It's been more than a year. My God. Good job, Sherry. God bless you. Thank you for your consistent patronage of the content that I produce. All right, my friends, it's time for me to land my plane. I got to get some sleep, wake up, go drive down to DC. Follow me on Locals. I'm not going to be streaming tomorrow. I will not be streaming tomorrow. Not on my regular channel. I do expect to be streaming the inauguration. That I will be streaming. I'm going to find some way to stream the inauguration. And I'm going to give updates, and I might have a local stream tomorrow. The inauguration, I do plan on streaming. Wherever I am, I will be streaming the inauguration. I don't know where that's going to be. I'd love it if I'm in, like, actual viewing space of him. I don't know that anyone on my relatively insignificant level is going to be admitted into that sort of vicinity to be able to watch it live. Wherever I am going to give you the best coverage I possibly can of it, and I will be live streaming it. And I will also be sharing with you updates, different people who I may have the good fortune to come across, different events I'm going to be attending, different folks going to be meeting. That's going to be on locals. So just to wrap up here, wrapping up, tomorrow I'm probably going to do a local stream while I'm driving down. Probably, even though we didn't hit our target, but still, I like the diggers. They're fine people, the diggers, and if I can give them content while I'm driving down, why not? I don't expect to be doing a regular stream tomorrow night. I do expect to be doing a live stream on Monday of the inauguration, and I'll be giving you updates on locals about different things that I'll be doing. That's at goodlogic.locals.com, goodlogic.locals.com. Maybe I'll meet a few of your favorite creators, different people you follow on X. I don't know. I seriously do not know a single person that I will meet there. Maybe I end up meeting nobody other than a bunch of fine other fellow Trump-loving patriots, and that would be way more than sufficient. This is a phenomenal time. This is the end of the disastrous era of Joe Biden. Thank God we seem to have made through it. Thank God we had this changing of the guard. Hopefully the next 4 years are filled with peace, prosperity for all Americans, even the crazy ones. So God bless you. I appreciate your support throughout this entire terrible regime. You've been exceptionally and just gracious and amazing while we've been sitting here as part of the resistance, and now we're entering a new dawn here. Hopefully we're rising the ascension of a greater America where American values, American interests receive primacy from the incoming administration. God bless you. Lab meat is for they, them. It's not for you. It's not for you. The dope couldn't recite the oath correctly, so they had to do it again. No, get out of here. Get out. Is that really why? How's that possible? He's sworn in by the SCOT, by Chief Justice Roberts. How's that? $10 CDN off coupon for barely a dozen eggs. What? I don't even know where we're at here. I'm busy. I'm landing the plane. The plane's landing. The plane's coming down. The plane's coming down. All right, my friends. You know what they say. Don't eat the bugs. Don't do it. Don't touch it. Don't eat it. No, nothing. Don't touch it. It's terrible for you. It's just it's bugs. It's bugs. Why would you do that? Why would you even think about doing that? Have a good night. Godspeed.